December 15th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using the NinjaTrader 8 platform. This is how I saw the charts today. There's two pieces of economic data that came out, one at 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is about right here. Now you could say maybe market was trending up and then the news came out and it caused it to crash. This is the Empire State Manufacturing Index. Now, I don't know. It could or could not be, but then the other piece of economic data that came out at around 6:45 Pacific Standard, which is about right here, was the flash manufacturing PMI and the services PMI. I forgot what PMI stands for. And it didn't really look like it shocked the market. There wasn't very much volume today, and it was very, very choppy. I gotta say, there was kind of like, as I was watching this, there's a lot of whipsaws and quick reversals that made things kind of tricky for me to kind of read. I mean, the setups were kind of forming, but then you had to be very careful of traps. I suspect, I could be wrong, that it's because the December 2023 contracts, the ESZ23, are switching over completely now to the H24s. So there are some, people that are still holding those contracts and maybe just closing them out or rolling them at the very, very last day, which would be today. So next week, it's just going to be the H24 because the Z23s will have expired, and things in terms of that kind of variable should be washed out by then, hopefully. I put this big orange arrow here because after watching this crazy price action, I just kind of, I don't know, just kind of mentally checked out. So I just ended up reading a lot of articles, watching YouTube videos, and just, watching the market still, but nothing was forming really clean for me to feel really, really enthusiastic. And then I did finally take a trade over here. So it looked like there was like one leg down, push up, a consolidation, and then back down. So it looks like a sideways W formation. And this was the pre-market highs and the pre-market lows. And ideally, I think it actually fit better where the midline of this pre-market high and pre-market low was. So probably midline and maybe roughly right around here. But as I said, it was very choppy, kind of not the cleanest trading today. So I'm going to get through the trades now. So this is the pre-market. It looks like it's going to be a lot of volume, a lot of activity, but then once the market opens, you're going to see pretty quickly that it wasn't very clean, and there was a lot of, as I said, quick reversals. It set up a second entry and then it fake you out. So I'm glad I didn't get caught up in any of those. So the market opens, you have a flash down, and at this point, I'm thinking this is the pre-market lows, and then the market opens. So I'm thinking there is a bearish bias. I'm just watching carefully. Prices continue moving. It breaks out of the pre-market lows, kind of bounces, creates one measure move up, and this is where I actually take my first trade. Now this is very, very early, very, very quick. As you can see, there was a failed breakout here because I actually drew this as a potential. What I was looking at was this gray line here was the bottom of the pre-market, but I was considering maybe the bottom was actually right here, and I thought this was a failed breakout here and is pulling back in. So what I actually saw here for my first setup is a first entry short, second entry short, and then I also counted this as a double bottom. Well, I didn't also, I just decided this might be cleaner as counting as a double bottom. I saw this as a first entry short, second entry short, flashes down. It creates a higher low, but I will admit it was a little early when I jumped in because it could have been also a first entry short, second entry short failure. And then this is a higher low, but this candle didn't close yet, and I already jumped in because when I saw it move down, it flashed up and then it was kind of hovering above here where the EMA was. So on a hunch, I just kind of entered early at the close, actually at the open of this candle, and I was able to create a quick scalp. Now, this isn't a very good trade because it looks ugly and it isn't very clean. So I think it was mostly FOMO that I entered, and I was just actually lucky that the trade worked out. So, and this is also in the first 2 minutes. So after I saw this action, I think I was just thinking, oh, prices are obviously going to move back up. And as you're going to see, if I had gone for more, I likely would have gotten stopped out, which is rather dangerous. So there was no real good reason to take this trade, but that was my thinking process at the time. And I was profitable, but I also knew how foolish this trade was. So I kind of mentally made a check note or a note to myself to slow down, to calm down. Okay, so then prices continue moving. falls into this range, it finally breaks out. And so I'm wondering, is this a potential resistance line? There's an overshoot here. I did try to include this, but then when I did that, it kind of completely ignores these two touches here. So I actually left it here because it touched nicely here, and I treated this as an overshoot. And kind of prices continue moving. It looks like it's falling within this trading range, but then I was questioning this orange one. Could this been the trading range? Because I was thinking this orange one first, broke down, then I drew this blue one, and the top of the blue one here, but I was thinking maybe it's actually this orange one. So I was working with potentially two resistance areas and two support areas. Prices shot up, and here I'm thinking maybe it's the blue one that's holding. Prices then continues on this green channel, makes a first entry short, and here creates a second entry short. So it's from here, new low, first entry short, second entry short. Whether you took the blue range, which is here, or the orange, which is here, or a combination blue and then you made the orange as your range, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is the setup is there. There is a fail breakout in the second entry short. Even though if you're unsure of which one it is, it's clearly kind of broke out and pushing back into the range. And it's a pretty decent signal bar, and there's enough room to the EMA. So this is a possible trade. I didn't really become fully aware of it until like this happened. When this big flash down happened, I thought, okay, maybe I missed something. But I also realized that this is a very quick reversal that happened. So I wasn't sure if I would have even caught that trade. Prices then continue moving down. It continues and chops sideways in this range. And it's just very, very noisy, very, very ugly at this point. Prices then chop again. It starts breaking out. And I'm just looking for, so at the time, but I deleted them since then, I was drawing all kinds of channels to try to capture everything, but it was getting very messy. This is kind of after the fact. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Let's go ahead and delete this guy real quick. Okay, so I'm watching. I do see a new low here. It's a first entry short, second entry short, but I also saw this as a new high. It's a first entry long, second entry long. It kind of makes a double top. And then on this candle, I like that this created an engulfing candle that very definitively fails the second entry long. But what's happening is it engulfed it. I'm not sure if it's going to bounce off of this. So I'm a little unsure because the double top rejection is not the best signal bar because this is your signal bar that it's failure on the second entry long. It did push down strongly. Maybe perhaps if it closed at the bottom, I would have felt more confident. But then again, it is coming close to the EMA and close to this potential resistance, which now could be a support because it looked like it was supporting prices previously. So I wasn't sure, so I just had to, leave it alone. Turns out it would have worked, but if you overstayed your welcome, would have reversed really quickly back up on you. Prices then continue moving up. I see a new high, technically a new high here, makes a double top, so this becomes your new high, creates a first entry long, then creates a second entry long potential. So I did draw this as a potential trend line support, and I put the top here and it created this purple channel. So I didn't take this trade, but I looked back on it and I think it was a decent setup because it's a good signal bar. It is holding prices. It's below the EMA, but it looks like it's creating higher lows each time. And I don't think that this range is any threat of prices coming back in at this point. Looks like it would have worked. Then prices continue moving. It falls into what I think is another range. I see this as a new low, first entry short, second entry short. When this one closed, I also was counting from here as a first entry long, second entry long. So technically, the second entry short hasn't failed yet, and the second entry long here hasn't been confirmed. So it's all going to depend on this candle here. And of course, I didn't label it yet, but I was watching it. So I knew if it creates something higher here and it doesn't break below this guy, then it's going to confirm a failed second entry short and a second entry long, and that would be a long trade. Flashes up. I don't take the trade though, and it confirms it and it flashes up. I don't have a reason why I didn't take the trade. I think I just wasn't mentally aware. Prices then continue moving. Drops down, kind of moves sideways. You have a new high, first entry short, first entry long, second entry long, third entry long. Continues chopping. It's just very choppy price action right now. So this is what I marked. So this is kind of interesting. So here we have a new low. We have a first entry short, second entry short. So here you have a second entry short. It's a terrible signal bar to go short on, right? You don't really think you want to go long either. It's in the middle of this range. What happens is if you had decided to go short right here, you would have gotten in and you would potentially get stopped out. But then you see 1, 2, 3 triple test. So it might be giving you more confidence to go short. Then it fools you and it flashes up. So it would have stopped you out if you decided to go short, thinking it's a triple test, price moving back down. If you did the count differently and you said this is a new high, it's first entry long, second entry long, thinking that this flashes up, maybe I'm going to take a long here, you would have gotten the long. But here, depending on how many points you're going after, you would get stopped out again. So at this point in time, I was looking back and this was kind of slow price action and it was kind of mentally taxing on me. Now, I don't know if it's I'm just not feeling in tune today, and I just wasn't quite sharp. I could feel it mentally. So after all this price action and there's these quick reversals that are happening. I just decided, okay, I am not in line. I was lucky to have gotten this trade. I'm going to be very, very careful, and I'm just, going to start looking at other things. Meaning, I'm just going to start reading articles, reading what's going on in the news, watching YouTube videos, etc. Because I just wasn't feeling it. On top of that, I had a pretty decent week, a pretty good win ratio this week, so I didn't want to screw that up and end this week on a red. Not end the week on the red, end today on the red, because I've already green, might as well just end in a green, unless I see a very phenomenal setup. So all this is I'm just watching, but I'm not really consciously looking now. Well, I'm consciously, let me take that back. I'm consciously looking, but I'm not, I guess I don't have my mental state tuned in to get ready, get a trade ready. I'm just watching, observing. We do have a new high here. Technically, we have a new high here. First entry long, second entry long is a terrible signal bar. Wouldn't have taken this. The new high here, if the count resets, you have first entry long, second entry long. This is a so-so signal bar. It kind of creates a double top. Ideally, you want it to tick maybe one above. Then you'd have enough room to get to the EMA. It is bouncing off the bottom of this pre-market range. But as you can see, it's not sure if it's valid because it did break below and it did find support on this orange line. So here, I didn't think of taking a trade either. So I was just kind of checked out, just watching. Price then continue. It creates this downtrend, what I think is captured by this purple, but it immediately breaks out. It goes up what I think is on this green line. It's just kind of choppy again. There's kind of big stems. I count this as a new low. It's a first entry short, second entry short. And this candle here is very neutral, but it's bearish. I wouldn't have thought to take a short. Plus, it's going right into the EMA, so I wouldn't have thought to take a short. You have first entry long here. You create a second entry long here. This is a decent signal bar right here. But when you're way down here, the furthest thing I'm thinking of taking a long, I'm not trying to pick the bottom because it's the lowest low of the day right now. And this setup isn't very clean in the first place. You have an overshoot here. You might think you're going to create an overshoot over here, but I needed something a little bit more firm. As you see, if you did take a long, it would have got you and then stopped you out. Prices then continue chopping again. So as you can see, it's kind of been a very tricky day, kind of a lot of quick reversals and traps everywhere. Then prices continue moving. Say new high, first entry long, second entry long, third entry long. Because if you were thinking second entry long here, it's first entry long, pull back. You have confirmed second entry long. This bar, you're thinking, okay, it looks pretty nice. I think I'm going to enter. If it were me, maybe I'd enter at the high of this bar. If I get filled, it flashed down, so I'm in the long position, chops down, and depending on where I was, it'd be chopping sideways through all this. I'd be very anxious, and maybe I would have gotten out here, but it just didn't feel like a good setup. Prices then continue chopping. And this is where I see a second entry long. Now, the second entry long, I thought after all this, I've been sitting for about two good hours. So like it's 9:23 Pacific Standard, all the way about to 11:28. So it's 2 hours of just watching how many candles printed in here, which wasn't very many. I saw this as a new high, first entry long, pull back, second entry long. Now the second entry long is confirmed here. So you for sure know you have a second entry long here. It is bouncing off the bottom, this recent low. I would debate whether I had enough room to get out before I hit the potential top, which would make me a little nervous. But this closed pretty strong. This signal bar, if it was a little more cleaner, like closed more bullish, I might have felt a little more confident, but it does still run into the possibility I'm going to run into some kind of resistance here. You technically have just enough room to get a quick scalp before you hit the top, but what's to say you don't get stopped earlier? So I had to leave it alone. Prices then continue moving up. Technically, you have the higher low here if you wanted to take it, but it just feels like I don't know. I just didn't really like the setup. It's a first entry short as well. Prices then continue chopping, breaks down. I drew this as a potential trend line support, and this is a potential trend line resistance. It looks like it's pretty good, and this is actually where I take my second trade. So I actually saw this. So what I saw was a new high. I saw it's a first entry long pullback, potential second entry long. It confirms and it flashes up. What I also noticed was is a very similar setup to here. It's a first entry long pullback, second entry long. This is very similar to this, and that's an inside bar. But this one was below the EMA. This one was fighting and struggling to push back up, and it's creating higher lows every time. What I also took into consideration was if this truly is the trading range, you had a fail breakout here. And as you can see previously, it was hitting the highs to the lows, to the highs to the lows, whether you had the lows as low as I did or slightly higher. It's kind of getting wiggly. Put it back up here. Let's bring this down here. Whether here or here, you're just seeing it bounce back and forth. And here now it's failing to get to the bottom. It comes back out and it's having another fail breakout. So I actually thought this might be a failed or a breakout pullback because it's also creating higher lows every time. So I thought, okay, the EMA is coming into play. It's starting to turn up. So I thought there's potentially a trade here. There's enough room to the top. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this trade as opposed to this setup, which is first entry long, second entry long. The most recent high is right here. So I didn't feel as much room here as opposed to here. It's a little bit close, but I thought there was enough room. So took it one tick above, breaks out of the range, get my quick scalp, and then it just continues upwards. Now it's debatable whether this is a really valid trade or not. I will admit it's not the cleanest, but I kind of took it into consideration. Maybe this is a fail breakout, this is another fail breakout, trending up. It might be a trade there. And the prices continue moving, bounces off the bottom of the red channel several times now, so I'm pretty confident the bottom of this red channel is valid. However, we're getting very close to the end of the day, and it's getting pretty close to the last 10 minutes. And as you can see in the last 10 minutes, as always, well, excuse me, not as always, but as typical, it gets very, very choppy, and price action is getting very quick now because it's the last 10 minutes, people are closing out their positions, either taking profits or taking loss or doing a rollover. And so it just kind of flashes up and then kind of goes back down and goes into the close. So it was a very kind of a slow day. There were a lot of few areas that were tricky, and I also saw some kind of sporadic, uh, crazy quick reversals that happened throughout, where it just kind of flashed down and then chop around and flash back up, and it was just nothing, nothing that gave me a lot of confidence. So right around here, I kind of mentally checked out and decided to take it easy, and then I kind of looked more seriously right around here. So total two trades, uh, two that I'm not particularly proud of, especially the first one. Second one's a little more iffy, but better reason than the first one. So hopefully that was helpful.